Hey everyone, good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. Hope you're well. We're going to make a start. I hope you're hanging in there and you're all healthy. My name is Sergio Laravertial, and I'm one of the nutcases that supports this wonderful adventure called iCoachKids, a not-for-profit global movement to support youth coaches worldwide. Thank you for making the time to join us today, and welcome to the 5th iCoachKids Shares live webinar, The Future of Football, Part 2, with Pete Sturgess from the English FA and Kris van der Haegen from the Belgium FA. I'm really pleased to tell you that we have 18 countries at the last count in connecting today. If I show you the next picture, that's what the booking process looked like this morning. I don't know if you can see it. That was people camping to get into the session today. Over 150 people tried to get in. People watching on YouTube as well. Before we get going, let me take you through some basic family rules to make sure that everyone has the best possible experience. I'm just quickly, I was just double checking that we are live on YouTube, and we are. Please keep your camera and your microphone off at all times so we can focus on the speakers. Please be respectful to everybody. Share your opinions on the chat, but make sure it's done in a respectful way because we are here to share and to learn. Please submit comments or questions using the chat function on both Zoom and YouTube. And feel free to post on social media and get the conversation going and get more people involved. With that out of the way, let me also explain how the session is going to run. We're going to start with some basic introductions. Then our speakers will present some ideas for roughly 15 minutes each. And then we're going to have a conversation with them and open for questions from you via the chat facility. All right, so allow me to introduce the two speakers. I'm going to try and keep this really short because you met them already in part 1, and also because they are quite well known. They're kind of celebrities in the football world anyway themselves. So Kris van der Haegen is the Director of Coach Education for the Belgian FA and an assistant coach to the Red Flames, which is the Belgian women's national team. Pete Sturgess is the lead for the English FA DNA Foundation phase and also a former England futsal head coach. In part 1, Kris and Pete explore the journey their national federations have been on to make sure football is ready for the challenges of the 21st century society, both in terms of developing talented players, but also in terms of making sure that football is accessible to all children, not only to the more capable ones. Today, we will take a nosedive into the nitty-gritty of what that means for the coach working on the ground and explore what Kris and Pete have been working on lately. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Kris, who will speak to you for the next 15 minutes, and then we'll go over to Pete. Kris, Pete, thank you very much for joining us today. How are you?
I'm fine. Yeah, hope for you the same.
Very well, thank you, very well. So Kris, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so you can share yours. And over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, can everybody hear me in a good way?
Yeah.
Because I had some troubles, Sergio, to hear you. Sometimes the sound was going away, but don't know what's going on. But I see that most of them, they say that it's okay. Okay, then we can start. I'm gonna try to share my screen. But up. Okay, here we go. So, good afternoon, everybody, or good morning in some countries. Okay, so I'm going to take you on a journey about thinking about the future, but especially going back in the past and see and show you how we prepared the future of today years ago. And, this is for me a link that I want to send to you. It's an article that I've been written on the website of iCoachKids, and it's about what's the best football environment for our players, and our players can be very good at past and see and show. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I will share the presentation afterwards, so you have the time to go through it. This gives you also the time to read more in detail some elements where I've been going through very quickly. This is something I want to put on the table as a challenge. So it's about these two cartoon actors who say, look, Hobbes, I got a paint by numbers cut, the small one to the big one. And he say, it's really fun. And the big one says, yeah, but you're not painting in the lines and not using the colors that correspond to the numbers. And the young one, the smaller one, say, but if I did that, I would get the picture they show on the box. And I don't want this picture. I want to make my own picture. And that's the point I want to start with you about thinking about. What about creativity? Do we give the players the license to be creative in our training sessions and in our game? We really have to think about that. And we have been written down the playing philosophy and a coaching philosophy. And it's about being consistent, and the way you coach helps the players to be the players they want to become. And that's it's a common journey all over it's a common language all over the journey. And this is what we have been doing for several years with our national teams, from youngsters, now also on the women's side. So creating a common language, a common environment of training, a common way of dealing with players. And this is one of the slogans that we use in that environment of coach education. That's the role of coaches and educators. Give children roots to grow, to make them better, and wings to fly. And this is from a picture I use from Jim Forsberg's amazing picture. Where do you want to be as a child? And then we are on the right side, and it's a player-centered approach with freedom. And when we have to create a training session or a playing environment, we have to think about who is in front of me, who are they, what are their characteristics, and what are they able to do, and what are they able to learn or not to do and not to learn. So this is why we ask our coaches, is this the best way to teach your 5-6-year-old child to ride a bicycle? Will this experience give them wings to fly? I don't think so. So that's why we started thinking about how can we create the best training environment and the best playing environment. And this is the pathway we created for youngsters in Belgium. And I will just quickly go through it and give you some examples, because this is how they start playing football in Belgium. It's called dribbling football. It's the 1v1 duel and 2 goalkeepers. And this is when they start playing football, they are in that environment. And there is where we teach them football as a dribbling game. So then the next step in the under 7, we make it more complex. Just the complexity is growing with the age and with the shirt of the players. So we introduce here the triangle, but you see again, it's all about the 1v1. Yeah. So mastering the 1v1 situation, it's very important in our playing philosophy. So when we go then to the next step, we go from one triangle to a double triangle, which makes the diamond. And we play for 2 years in 5v5 format, in that format. And then we go for 4 years in the double diamond. So why do I give you this as an introduction? To make you think as a coach, if you are coaching before in the lower age groups than under 13, because this is still under 13. In Belgium, they only start playing 11v11 at under 14. So if you are in these age groups, you have to ask you the question about the bicycle. What's the best environment to make them train, to make them learn as much as possible, to give them an environment of creativity, and how can we do it? And this is how we develop that pathway for players, where we introduce dribbling skills before passing. And this is very important, because the earlier you make them dribble, the better dribblers they will be. The earlier you make them, you give them that license for creativity, the more they will be able to do it when they grow up and when they are older. So this is how we started thinking about what's the best playing environment. And the best playing environment, at our opinion, is to ban competition, keep the parents involved, let the players, give them maximum playing opportunity, create flexible environment like we did when I was young. Street soccer, we played at the street. There were no rules. We made our own rules, very flexible, and with maximum development opportunities. And this is how we started playing in Belgium, the 2v2. And you see, you can make a lot of pitches, mini pitches, all over a big football pitch. On one football pitch, you can see it here on one side, you can make 4 pitches. You can make 4 on the other one. It's 8, it's 16 in total on a big pitch. If you multiply 16 pitches with 4 players, so you have really a big opportunity for creating a football festival. And this is how we extend this to the older age groups, by creating football pitches that are really tailor-made. I don't know what's happening, but I have, think, a technical issue here. Now it works. So this is where they play in the 5v5 format. And this is how how the pitches is growing in the 8v8 format. On the right side, you see under 10, under 11, they play on a smaller pitch in the same double diamond as under 12, under 13. Yeah, the pitch is growing with the age group, is growing with the size of the shirt. The complexity is growing with the age groups. So they like it to be on the bench, but they don't like to be on the bench. So that's why we changed regulations. Before under 17, we play now in 4 quarters. And after every quarter, all the substitute players come on the field. It gives all the players at least 50% of playing time. So in Belgium, we consider the game as a tool to show what you've learned during the week. And that's very important to show you how this works, that tailor-made football. And we call it FestiFoot. And that's very important, that the first contact for kids, it's in a non-competition environment. It helps us to take control over the parents, because teams are coming together and we mix the players. We mix them up and let them environment and let them explore that new environment where they play for twice 3 minutes and then they go to another game. So all the time they're changing, they're playing against new players, against new teams, and all the time it's just playing for fun. Up we go to the next. And this is how it looks like. So you will see we also made special goals for them, and that's what we call that dribbling football. So there is no specific goalkeeper. They'll change all the time. So once it's the first one, then it's the second one who's going into the goal. It's just about playing and having fun. So, like you can see here, in some festivals, it's not only playing games. We create challenges. And I will give you some examples in a minute about these challenges. These challenges, it's about like creating a playing ground on a football pitch. Yeah. So it's a technical challenge where they dribble, where they play like tag games and so on. So it's really important that they start playing in that very friendly environment. And I will go quickly through it to show you how it works in practice. Like you see here, the pitch, and then you have a blue house and a green house. This helps the players to know, okay, we start from the blue zone and there are 2 players coming in, one is dribbling in with the ball, the other is coming, and they play against two other ones. And then they go out on the yellow exit. And when you look at this, why do we use blue and green, or blue and yellow, to give them like an example? For example, the blue ones, we call them the sharks. And the yellow one, we can call them the canaries. And then it's just creating imagination language, like the players, like the children, like they like. And then we say, okay, canaries, go. And then they start dribbling in, and the other, they have to defend. Yeah, but I show you in a video will see immediately how it looks like. So you see the playground here. So these are the challenges that they create, where they are going to dribble, coordination skills. Yeah. So and having fun and discovering what it is to become a football player. So we have created a whole, like a booklet with fun activities. This is tag games. So where you see the educator, the coach is also participating and making connection with the players. And here you see the 2v2 game. And you see there at the end, you see the yellow boxes where they're starting from. One is with the ball, one is without the ball, and the others, they are coming from the white box. And what's now here, this second ball. And now a third ball, there. So this is what we call the magic ball. The coach can help, if the attack is quickly finished, he drops in a second ball and he shouts, magic ball. So immediately they turn, they go into a second attack or a third attack, and this gives the opportunity to get all the players involved. Even the weakest one, they will touch the ball. So you can take your time to go through this, but here I've explained everything in the slide, how it works in practice to organize it. I will send that to you. And that magic ball is really a very interesting example. Yeah. Interesting to know about, as we call it, dribbling football. At the end of the session, normally before, there were like penalty kicks. But here, to have the focus on the dribbling skills, at the end of every festifood, we do like shootouts. And shootouts, it's a combination of dribbling and then shoot out the goalkeeper, like they do in hockey and field hockey and in ice hockey, because we focus on this, because we have there the very specific skill of dribbling, running with the ball and dribbling. So for us, it's very important to create that environment of creativity and of play, where they play and they have maximum touches of the ball at very young age. And we try to create that street soccer environment or that playground environment with a lot of challenging and various exercises. Okay, this is, for example, these are like these challenges where you do like playing a bowling game and playing a ball thief game where they steal balls from each other. They have to put it in the hoops. You can take the time to go through it, but the youngsters, these games, it's really very, very valuable. Yeah. And then you can combine like playing a real football game and playing a challenge, doing a challenge like you see here in this example, where you can make in the middle a pitch for the football games, and around you can create different stages or different corners for doing other activities. Yeah. So I want to finish by focusing on the game-based approach in Belgium, and this is, and if you, I don't know if you know it, but also in our physical education schools, we work with that model of teach games for understanding, and the game is really the key for learning. And you all know the sentence: the game is the teacher, yes, but which game is the teacher? The 11v11 game is not always the best teacher. You really have to go and look for what is the best playing format, or what is the best training game to learn, to make them learn the skills you want them to learn. So the big advantage of that model of teaching games for understanding, it's that they appreciate the game, that the players, they love the game, but you all the time you have tactical awareness. And tactical awareness in the game means making the right appropriate decisions. And when they make the right decision, automatically there will be skill execution. So we prefer skill execution during the game environment. Yeah. And this will help them to become more performant in the future. Yeah. Okay, what about what you see here? We call it in Belgium, it's our terminology. Intermediate forms, it's the drills that we do between two games. Yeah. Do they have the same ingredients? No, they don't have the same ingredients because there's no opposition or there's less opposition. So that's why we work with two different activities in training, which ones we call match forms. This you see, these are the 6 conditions to be considered as a match form. That means the training activity is really very close to the game environment. Yeah. And then we have all the other activities like technical skills, shooting drills without opposition. This is what we call intermediate exercise. Yeah. So why do we prefer the game methodology? Because there's more decision making, there's more fun, more self-motivation, and it's the realistic situation. Do that mean that all the other drills are bad? No. Sometimes you need them to have more repetitions, to have a more individualized approach, and to have like more remediation or correction training. And this is like how it looks like in Belgium, a thinking process of a training session. You see, we try to make a combination of match forms and intermediate forms, but also with the majority of match form. So this is what I want to finish with. It's very important that what you teach them in the 2v2, 3v3, and 5v5, and 8v8, that this is the same thing that they need for the 11v11. So you have a accumulation of learning. For example, when we talk about the team tacticals, these are the only ones that we teach. The left side, B+ is attacking, ball possession. The red side, the right side, is defending. So what we teach them here grows with the age group. From 5v5, we teach them width and depth, but we don't use the terminology width and depth. We use the terminology of an airplane or a bird. Spread your wings. You open up, spread your wings, and we fly. When we lose the ball, we say attack the ball. You come together and attack the ball. So this is where I want to finish with. It's your role as a coach to create the right environment. Yeah. And for that, to do that, you need a toolbox. And the toolbox that we prefer is the one with the game forms, match forms. And that what we mean is to have at least 50% of this activity in the training. And then you can build it up and go to more complexity, have more complex situation or reduce complexity. Yeah. And these are the different elements that we really use to evaluate what are we doing. Yeah. Football for me, it's a brain sport. So you need a cognitive approach. So that means first you have different steps. You have to scan perception. You have to conceive the options. You make a decision. You go to execution. And then afterwards, you make the assessment if your execution and your decision was right. That's the process that you have all the time. So in that game-based approach, we have like 5 different elements that are really very, very important, which is a very specific situation. What's the situation? How do I deal with space, which is distance, angles, triangles, and lines? And what about the timing? These are the things you need if you need all together. And we consider this to be like the intelligent. And I just show you one example. So this is like how we consider the training time golden age and how we work in practice. Yeah. So you see 16% it's about coordination. And then you see orange and brown, 21, 26%, it's the match forms. So this is the priority, and 32% is the technical work. Yeah. So how does it look like? I give you an example how we build that accumulation of learning from the up from the 5v5 to the 8v8. And I just took one example. It's about creating basic principles that you can teach them from very young age, and that they use these principles, they still use them in the. So I took the example of building up from behind. Yeah. So what are our basic principles in Belgium? Short combination play, create superiority or create a man more with the goalkeeper. And how we do it, the central defender opens on right or left side, and the other players have to create space and create depth and width. So how we do it, I show you. And then we try to play forward and to break lines, and the ball receiver has to be ready to protect the ball. How does it look like at very young age for the match forms? So yeah, forget about the Flemish text because it's coming for our daily work. So you can see here, level 1, 9 players. So how do we work there? You see the number 3 is opening onto the right side. The other players are adapting to make a diamond. Yeah, and then you see it on the right side when the ball is getting there. He's trying to dribble in. We always give them the opportunity, go. If you have space in front of you, go. And then you have different options where to play and how to attack the opponent goal. Yeah. If it's not possible to play forward, okay, go back to your goalkeeper, use the goalkeeper as an extra player and change side. Yeah. So you see here now, what if the striker marks our central defender? Like you can see the number 9 is close to the central defender. What about that? Okay, if he marks him, we have to find another solution. And okay, then the solution is the goalkeeper starts dribbling in and he's playing on the left side or in the center. So from the very young age, from 9 years old, we teach them about this decision making. Taking the picture, scanning, making the options, taking the decision, and go to execution. All the time in this real situation. If they cannot play forward, they go back to the goalkeeper and they switch side. Yeah. Okay. Level 2, and this is with zones where we ask our goalkeeper to help to eliminate the line. It's play first on the central defender to attract the striker, and then play back on the goalkeeper, and then find the solution. Yeah. So this is all the time showing them opportunities and making them make decisions. They have to make the decision. Yeah. And we don't want the goalkeeper to kick the ball away. We really want our goalkeeper to use an opportunity to be a partner in playing the game and starting up the attack. So this is the match form approach, and you see different levels of complexity. And what about the technical side? Watch this. We try to keep the technical side linked with the team tactical approach about build-up. So that means, so what we do is like creating space there. You receive the ball, you play back. We change side like we did in the previous games. And then there we want him to have a good first touch and try to score there. And then we start the same thing on the blue side. Up, blue is receiving the ball from the goalkeeper. He changes side, and there we finish. So without opposition, just to make them comfortable with the ball, first touch, dribbling, and shooting. Yeah? And now we will go second level, where you will see same exercise at the beginning, but when the ball is going, after that switch of play, number 5 receives the ball, dribbles inside, and number 5 yellow with number 10 yellow, they play a 2v1 situation against the number 3 of blue. And then we start again on the other side. The same thing on the blue side, and then the number 7 receives the ball, and he will play 2v1 situation, 7 plus number 10 against the yellow number 3. So this is the way how we focus on game format. What are the decisions that we want them to make? And this is the starting point to find exercises like technical exercises where we really try to make the link what they have been doing in the game. So after this technical exercise, we go back to a game where we can see if they have made progress on that very specific topic. And that's my first part, and I can pass the floor to Pete to go on with the second part.
Yeah, thanks a million, Kris. Lots of great information there and lots of questions really starting to come through on the chat. So we'll get to those later. Now
I will check the questions now and already write them down. Good.
Perfect. Okay, and then we're going to move over to Pete. Okay, Pete, so if you want to share your screen.
Yeah. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
And can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah. Very well, thank you.
It was fascinating listening to Kris. I've taken lots and lots of notes, at least 2 pages here. And partly because I need a reminder of some of the great things he was saying, but also so that I can look back at it and see how many links there are that are very similar to our own approach. And we've adopted a slightly different stance on all of the things that Kris mentioned. So I think for anybody listening or watching this in the future, between the two of us, I think you're going to get a really good idea of what might be a blueprint for development in the foundation phase. So a big thank you to Kris. You've raised some really great points that I've probably got as many questions as the people listening in. But I've had more of a narrow focus. We are a much bigger country than Belgium, and I think in some ways it's an advantage, in other ways it's a disadvantage. So I think what Kris has been able to implement is absolutely perfect if you've got a pathway that starts very, very early and has as a means of taking those players through it so that they understand what is required at the national team level. I think it's a great pathway, and all of the formats fit in along that journey. We haven't got a specific way of playing as a national team. We like 4-3-3, but we also want the flexibility to change. So actually starting our youngest players off with a very specific formation, such as the single triangle, the double triangle, then the diamonds, and how it progresses through the different formats. That wasn't our approach. But what we were criticised as not having was a real detailed blueprint for development. And so our DNA work is that blueprint that we've now taken out to the whole game, but particularly the grassroots game. So although I've got a narrower focus, I think a lot of it will complement what Kris has already mentioned. So Kris used different words, but our main mantra is that love is a better teacher than a sense of duty. So we too want young children, young people to fall in love with not just football, but with being physically active and the enjoyment and the social aspects and the friendships that can develop as a result of that kind of environment. So this is our non-negotiable bottom line. The environments that we create must embrace this approach, that for the very young, we have to enable them to fall in love with the game. We began to identify certain key headlines that we could begin to communicate out to the whole game. And the one that's probably received the most attention is this one. We had a real tradition of coaches, parents, other adults who are involved with our youngest players having a mantra of kicking the ball away and encouraging the children to kick it away, getting rid of it, boot it away. And we wanted to change this mindset to another thing. So we introduced this idea of encouraging the children to stay on the ball for a lot longer. The reason I say it was contentious is because it was interpreted by different people in so many different ways. So we began to clarify what exactly this would mean. So staying on the ball is all of these things. And although they're in no priority order, there's really three things that we wanted to address, or certainly to challenge. It was felt, even with our youngest players, that the only way that your team could keep possession of the ball was by passing it. Well, each individual player, if they have better individual technique and capability, can keep possession for your team as an individual without sharing it. And I think this important first step was missed out. Kris mentioned about enabling children or encouraging children to dribble before they pass. This is exactly what this means. Staying on the ball yourself is a great way to keep possession for your team. So that means there is more time on the ball for each individual player. That adds to the enjoyment, adds to the engagement, builds that real technical base that we all want all children to have, so that they enjoy the game more. And then that pays benefits because they want to play the game and stay involved with the game for so much longer. This was the most contentious issue, in that we had to communicate that for every individual possession and dribble and time on the ball, always involved a decision. So knowing when to share is a really important part of staying on the ball and having that individual possession. We also wanted the players to look for more penetration. So this was our way of beginning to introduce the principles of the game. And at the moment, we've got keeping possession, creating space, supporting players as the principles. We wanted to move penetration higher up the pecking order. So being able to penetrate with passes, dribbles, traveling with the ball, and score goals, we wanted to say that's what the game is about. It's the most exciting part, and it's what we want the children to experience from a very young age. So I've got a short video clip here that really sent out a message challenging this mantra of play the way you face, play the easy ball, or even get rid of it. We want players to enjoy being in possession. So even if they are under pressure and maybe facing the wrong way, we want them to develop the skills that they can get out of those situations themselves, as well as knowing that they can pass it at a later stage. So here's the video. I hope. Yes, here we go. So this player's facing the wrong way, but he has a means of getting out of that situation. This player's under pressure, but he's got the technical ability to feel confident and comfortable, even though there's an opponent really pressing down and trying to put him under pressure to take the ball off him. This is the best clip, because I think most coaches would be saying to this player, you need to pass it. Well, actually, he doesn't until the right time. So staying on the ball for us, being comfortable under pressure, and developing the awareness of where your opponents are, your teammates are, and having a huge technical capability to get out of any situation is what our DNA in the foundation phase is looking to do. So this idea of penetration and going forward and being attacking and exciting runs through our whole DNA. In the past, players would have been encouraged to put the ball out, but we're saying we don't want you to do that anymore. Let's see what other possibilities present. So this player is facing his own goal, is under pressure, but is comfortable and confident enough to try to play his way out. And young players, without any encouragement, will still try to pass the ball. But we need them to have that individual capability so that they can create some magic themselves. So the boy in orange who eventually picks the ball up likes to defend. But we also need to develop the capacity for him to play in the moment and really try to do something creative and exciting himself. So in saying what staying on the ball was, we tried to make it even clearer by saying staying on the ball is not. So there was a perception that the FA and the foundation phase DNA was just encouraging children to be ball greedy, dribbling until you lose it, not really being aware of your teammates, and just really happy that you're losing possession, even though you've had a nice time for a few seconds on the ball. It couldn't be further from the truth. But when you start this process in the foundation phase, this is what it might look like, because the children can't do it proficiently and effectively at the moment. So as coaches, we have to hold our nerve while the players get used to this different approach and develop their technical abilities. So it may look as though the players are greedy or not willing to share it, but what we're trying to get them to buy into is this individual time on the ball and this ability to develop your own individual technical ability as high as possible. And we needed to do this for a very good reason, because we knew exactly what was going to follow on from this. Because once you've got players who are really comfortable on the ball and can stay on it under pressure, have the ability to turn and twist out of pressure, then we can then begin to establish not just individual techniques, but individual tactics. And these will develop from a player who's so comfortable in possession that he's now able to stay on the ball, to attract opponents to him, or to entice opponents out of position, so that they can change the situations in games. So how do you do that? You can begin to travel into spaces on the pitch. This will change your options and your decisions. It will also give your teammates a chance to take up different positions as well, and hopefully more threatening positions. As you're traveling with the ball, you can add more disguise, more deception, more feints to your actions on the ball to further confuse and disrupt and disorganize the defense. If all of your cognitive energy is spent on the ball, it's really difficult to scan and look around to assess where your opponents are. But if you're really comfortable in possession, you can then release some of that cognitive capacity to start looking at what the next decision and what the next options might be. And we obviously want those to be forward thinking, forward moving, and forward playing, so that we can really begin to penetrate more. So once we've established the individual techniques and players are really comfortable staying on the ball for longer, that's when we can begin to do some real damage, when we develop the individual techniques that come once you're very, very comfortable in possession. So Kris mentioned how they've got a very structured approach about the formats grow with the child and get bigger and include more players as the players get older. we firmly believe that these formats, these smaller formats, are the building blocks of the 11v11 game. And we shouldn't be in a rush to move the players through these smaller formats, just so that we can say they are now playing 11v11 and it's now the real game. All of these smaller formats are the real game. They include all of the elements of the big 11-a-side game. And it's a chance for us to really hone and refine and establish all of these individual techniques and individual tactics within numbers that are manageable for the developing and maturing child. So we want to make sure that all of those individual capabilities can be expressed within 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s before we move them into bigger units and obviously bigger teams. So that's our plan. It's slightly different to Kris's, but I think it's every bit as detailed, even though I've just looked at a very specific focus today. So I hope that helps clarify what the next phase of our foundation phase DNA is about. And I hope it's going to help the coaches who are listening in. Thanks, Sergio and Kris, for listening.
Thanks a million, Pete. Absolutely fascinating. You were talking about taking notes. I've got pages and pages from both presentations, really. Let me just share my screen. Actually, no, let's just have you the three of us on screen for the little discussion now. I've got one question that I'm going to ask both of you, okay? And then I'll ask some questions from the audience, really. But really fascinating, and also, as you know, I'm a basketball coach. Very interesting to see that we are grappling with very similar things, really. For me, one key element, and I think I've learned this from you two, really, and the last few years I've been trying to work on this. Yes, we want to, as you both said, we want to encourage the children to drive, to master the one-on-one, to be comfortable dribbling. And there's a fine balance between that and also fostering some sense of team play. Okay, so I'm going to go to Kris first. How do we get that balance right? And at what point does that balance become important? When do we have to worry about that? Kris, I'm going to go to you first. You're muted though. Let me unmute you. Yeah, you're good now, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you mean the balance between teamwork and individual work?
Well, yeah, but also in terms of how do we balance the books, really? How do we keep children being daring and brave and courageous to go one-on-one, to dribble the ball, to stay on the ball? But at what point do we include? How do we also include the team play, the elements of team play, without taking away from them, really?
Yeah. So that's exactly one of the reasons why we introduced the 2v2 football. In fact, it's 1v1. So it's 1v1 with the goalkeeper. So this was really the main to give the players full opportunity of doing the dribbling action, because taking away what Peter was talking about parents and coaches shouting all the time, pass the ball, pass the ball, pass the ball. So by doing it the other way around, teaching them first the dribbling skills and making passing the second option, they learn step by step. First, they learn to develop these dribbling skills. What I see the difference, after 2 years of playing 2v2 and 3v3, they all can dribble head up because they are all the time used to dribble it like that. Before, they couldn't do it because they had to protect the ball from 5 players attacking them. And then, of course, the more you are, the more people say, pass the ball, pass the ball. So by starting on the individual, on the development of these individual skills, they become more comfortable. And then by building up the process of complexity, by going first to 3v3, we create the first option all the time. Me, am I going to dribble or do I have an option for my teammate? But simple option, because there's only one, and pass back for the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
And they are comfortable with that. They go to the next complexity level, which is 5v5. I'm on the ball and I have 3 other options. So step by step, they discover the decision-making between individual action, so dribble, or playing with my teammate. And as soon as I play for my teammate, he's in the same situation. Decision-making, individual action, or do I use my teammate? So it's even on the senior level, on the 11v11 level, the game is 10 times 11, 1v1 plus the goalkeeper. So that's how we consider it. Does it mean that it becomes more individualized? Yes, of course. And the higher the level is, or national team, the Red Devils, they are all individuals. Big individuals, big egos, of course. But then you need the teamwork between these individuals. And this is, creating that connection between each other and creating a winning mentality, because there it's about the performance level and the elite level. But it's all about the individual development of players. And that's the focus we really, that's the switch we made.
We've lost Kris there for a second.
He was in full flow as well.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'll go to you, Pete. I mean, what's your take on Hi, Kris. We lost you there for a second. You're back.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go over to Pete really and ask Pete, just his thoughts really on the same issue.
I mean, I absolutely agree with what Kris has just summarized as the main reasons. That there's also another reason. If you're bringing children at 5 and 6 years of age into formal coaching situations, that developmentally they're in a different place anyway. So this concept of team play is alien to a lot of children of that age, but it is something that they will develop naturally if the environment is right.
Right.
So we almost feed the egotistical side of it and the self and the really wanting to meet my own needs first. But over time, and Kris's format of 2v2 absolutely helps this process. We introduce this idea of you can be really effective yourself. You can also be really effective with a teammate. And really, Kris is absolutely right. The 11-a-side game is made up of lots and lots of individual actions or actions that include 1, 2, or 3 players. That is what the big game is made up of. And yet it's certainly in England, it's a step that we certainly don't value well enough. And we certainly don't spend enough time helping players really come to grips with and to be effective within.
And so, but it seems to me like if we're gonna, and it was one of the questions really on the chat, that if we are gonna try and encourage the children to do this, what happens at the weekend has to be also along those lines, really, because if we are saying these things or fostering these behaviors in training during the week, but then in the game at the weekend, either through our behaviors or because actually the format of the game doesn't allow it, because they go and play 11-a-side, for example. That's where we all have to come in line, right? The structures and the behaviors, the structures of the governing body, the federation, and the behaviors of the coaches have to be aligned, really. Is that, you feel that you've managed to do that both in England and Belgium?
Yeah, we did, because you've seen, we are really proud about this. This is a unique concept all over the world, and I'm sure it works everywhere because it's the children, and it's really tailor-made for children. It's not thinking about how do the adults play. No, the adults play in their way. The kids, and I've read today in the press that, or was it on internet, that even in England now, from the future, they're gonna start signing players at very young age, 5, 6 years old. I saw an article this morning that's in the Premier League will also try to organize this. Well, if you do this, this is how it started in Belgium. If they can start playing at 5, 6 years old, the first question that we as a governing body have to ask ourselves is, what's the right format for these kids? And think about my bicycle. Don't make them play 5v5 because the problem is there's only one ball and they are 10, they all want to get the ball. So that's why we created that 1v1 and 2 goalkeepers, because it gives them full activity time and full development time. And that's also, and when I see Pete saying, okay, these are the building blocks of the 11v11 game, of course, and that's why we have to work on in the training session, to play these small situations, it's like imitation of, I compare it with pieces of the puzzle. So a 3v2 situation, it's a piece of the puzzle on the pitch, a 2v1, a 1v1. And this is what they have to learn. And the more they do this in the training, the better it will be in the 11v11 game. And even for the 11v11 teams, they train in the week. They train in the week in small-sided games to perform in the weekend, to show in the weekend what they've learned on the small-sided game, to do it in the 11v11, because that's the objective for the older age group. Or for youngsters, 5v5 is their best game. So that's what we have to think about. What's the best environment?
Yeah, I think Sergio mentioned getting the balance between your approach as a governing body and all of the leagues and all of the support mechanisms that actually implement what your ideas are. And I think we've tried to keep as much of an element of competition as possible. And within that, we've tried to manage it effectively. So we've tried to upskill the parents, the coaches, to try to create a competitive environment, but the adults are able to role model how you behave within those competitive environments. It hasn't always worked. So I think if Belgium have saying, right, we are taking competition off the table until this age, that is one approach. We've tried to adopt a slightly different approach because I think competition is important, but I think the adults involved have to be real role models of how to deal in a sporting and respectful way, regardless of the situation, the score, what's happening in the game. And sometimes we've let ourselves down. So I'm not sure what the future will hold regarding, is it going to be competitive? Is it going to be leagues? Is it going to be this, that, or the other? But we do have periods now in the season for our youngest players where it's not competitive, where it is about playing and really enjoying that format. Whether that will extend to more of the season, I don't know.
Thanks, Pete.
I just want to make one point. Even in the 5v5 game, it's competitive.
Yes, yes.
But it's no competition anymore for the adults involved because there are no tables.
Yes, yeah.
It is competitive. It is competitive. Why?
Yeah.
Because there are 2 goals on the pitch.
Yeah.
The players, they play to win the game.
Yes.
The coaches, even if they won after the game, nothing is visible about winning.
Yes.
So no tables, but we organize the competition. It's a real competition.
Yes.
Without tables. And this helps a lot also to manage the whole environment around.
Yeah, it's a great point, Kris. And for me, even though there's no competition there at the younger ages, your national teams are hugely competitive. So it's not that we have to bring it in really young, otherwise you won't get it later on. You've shown that you can control it early on and still develop it and harness it and really perfect it later on. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be having really deep discussions and debates about, you know, our approach in the future.
Yeah, and the debate and the discussions, it's only about adults.
Yeah.
And we keep discussing with glasses of adults and we forget about the kids.
Yeah.
Because they don't care about these tables. They just want to play their game and have fun and become better as a football player.
Yeah. No, great point, Kris.
And, you know, to me, one key element as well that I think everybody has to realize is that the approach that you are proposing is not just for recreational football or because we are trying to get more children playing and keep them in the game. The approach works for everybody. Works to get more children in the game, but also works to develop more talented players. Am I right?
Yeah, there was a question about that, and it's about, this is a philosophy about teaching football, about coaching, and that philosophy is based about what are the characteristics of children, and children in grassroots football and children in the elite pathway, they are children. They are no different. The difference is, some of their skills. And they learn in a quicker way on the elite pathway, that's sure. But they learn as children. So the same approach works for elite football and for grassroots football.
Yeah. I used to be quite concerned that certainly our academies were bringing children into their programs younger and younger. Yeah. And it's only recently through some of our qualifications where I actually feel a little bit happier that they're going to be doing the right thing, in inverted commas, with these very, very young children. Because if you're going to start bringing children in earlier, you have to respect even more the fact that they are very young children, not set them on this path as footballers and start doing everything that the adult game requires. We have to protect their childhood, and unless your program, whether in grassroots or in the professional game, really protects the childhood of children rather than hijacking it, then I would say don't do it, because we have to enhance this period of their lives because it is so magical, not take away from it in the hope that one or two of them will go on to be professional footballers. It's too important a role for us to get into those kind of decisions.
Mm-hmm. And Pete, one question for you on the chat. With your futsal background, okay, where does futsal feature in the development, or potentially feature in the development of a young player?
How long have you got? I mean, I'm obviously a massive fan of futsal. But it's not because I worked with the national team for 8 years and saw what the game is like at the highest level. With my foundation phase head on, I just used to watch the game and think our young children need to be exposed to the demands of this game. And Kris said about we must choose the right game if the game is going to be the teacher. And futsal is definitely one of the right games for young players so that they can begin to express their creativity, their technical ability, and their ability to stay on the ball so that they can deal with pressure, so that they can change the situations in games and hopefully make better decisions as a result of it. Because in futsal, you're going to get the opportunity for really high levels of contacts on the ball, different kinds of movements, different decisions, different passes, different shots. The repetition rate just goes through the roof. So it's absolutely perfect for all young children. Yeah.
Peter, that's exactly why during 4 years, our kids from under 9 till under 13, they play futsal outside. We play 5v5.
Great. Yeah.
We play futsal on a normal pitch.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you say. The number of touches, they go through the roof. The creativity, it's all about not being afraid to lose the ball, trying out some things. And we also train all the time in that environment. So futsal, it's really key. And for me, futsal, it's the street soccer of the 21st century.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because it's not possible anymore to do it outside on the street. So we have organized it inside, it becomes futsal, and we organize it in a club to say, okay, our kids, they can't play on the street anymore. We're going to create that street soccer fun environment in our clubs, and especially in the grassroots clubs, and also in the academies, because it's the best tool for development, for individual development.
Yeah. The reason I included the video clip, and it was a futsal clip, is because we found that the players were under the kind of pressure that we wanted them to be under so many more times. So even if you fail the first time, you've got lots more opportunities to try something different, change your decision, or to develop, you know, what might be successful anyway. So it just seems to be the perfect storm when you bring young players and futsal together with a coach who understands development and can create the right environment. It's absolutely the perfect place to be.
Great stuff. And one more question, if I may. We've talked a lot about the need to include everybody, to make sure that every child can play the game. And there was a question around, with this emphasis on being comfortable on the ball and dribbling football, how do we include those children that are not very competent at doing that yet? Where do we put those children? How do we make them, how do we give them a sense of competence?
Do you want me to, can I go first?
Go ahead, Pete. Yeah.
Because I think the important thing is, or the important word that's missing is that they're not able to do it yet. And I think we have to provide the opportunities for them to get from where they might be at the moment to where we want them to be, and where they're going to feel much more comfortable in possession. And that's trying to devise individual challenges for the players. And that's where a coach, in planning their sessions, must look at which players they put together, which players they put on. If you're going to play 2v2, how do you decide which player plays with who and against who? This is exactly how we begin to manage, you know, those players who can, but also those players who can't. If you're disadvantaged time after time after time, as a young player, you will go and vote to do something else. So it's our responsibility, if we want to be really inclusive, to work hard to try to meet as many players' needs as possible, as often as possible.
Yeah. Peter,
Go on, Kris.
the individual approach, it's dealing with differences, and you have to find the right level, the right challenge for every child. And this is a basic need of every individual person. We want to be challenged. We want to learn something. So if the coach gives me always learning opportunities that don't fit my level, I will disconnect. Yeah. You have, if it's always too easy, if I put the best player together with the weakest player, there will also be a problem. So you have to find equal levels and equal challenges, and the best challenge for every individual.
And to me, I've always said that being able to differentiate in your sessions and make sure that every child gets something good for them, is one of the hardest things to do when coaching. For me, the hardest. And that's why it requires a lot of planning and thinking in advance. You can't wait to solve the problem until you face it. You have to, you have the luxury of knowing your people and who's going to come to that session. You need to plan that into your session. You can't just wait for that to happen. To me, that's a key element. Really, it's difficult to very difficult to wing it, differentiation.
Yeah.
One last question, if I may, and then I'll let you get back to your.
I want to say, just one thing about, because I talked about it. The game is the teacher. Everybody knows the sentence, but some of the coaches say, yeah, but does that mean that some of the coaches, they interpret it as, oh, easy. They play a game and my job is finished, and I step back and no, that's not what it is. The game is the teacher means let them play, and then your role as a coach is observe and then give the support that the players need to learn what you want them to teach in that specific game. So it's not stepping back and my job is finished. No, it's giving the game to the players and starting to observe and to check the things you want to have as an outcome in that game. And the game is a perfect teacher to say, stop, what's happening now, to ask them questions and to make them think about decision making And if you see that they are struggling, the game is the teacher to tell you, oh, just this is too complex. Do one step down, make some individual exercises, and then get back to the teacher, to the game, to see if it's getting better. This is how the game can be the teacher, but not just your job is not finished. It's not a way to say, okay, let them play and it's finished. It's more difficult. Yeah.
Thank you. One last question, really, and it's just come in. And apologies to everybody else for not getting to your question, okay? But one last question around. So Matt is working in Canada, okay? And in that culture where soccer is not very established, by the time he gets the children, the skills on the ball are not very well developed, okay? So if we want them to stay on the ball and dribble, where do we start? How do we get them to that point where they can do that? What's your sort of quick recommendations really in that sense, Peter?
I think there is ball mastery in isolation where you're practicing on your own and you're trying to develop a real connection and feel and touch for the ball. But that has to be tested out under pressure and against an opponent. So once you've got a decent level of ball mastery as an individual, the coach has to create those situations where we're testing and challenging whether it can stand up to the kind of pressure that will eventually come when we start playing games. So it's a long process. And I think all of the things that Kris and I have spoken about today, the coaches have to realize that this is a very long-term process. You don't suddenly start playing 2v2 and then magically everybody becomes Eden Hazard. But what we must recognize is that if we do want more players to look like Eden Hazard and have those capabilities, we have to put in place a long-term journey that is carefully thought out, is completely age appropriate at each stage, but has the facility where the games that you play, the activities that you're involved in are not dictated by age. Because for us in England, as soon as you reach 11 or 12 years of age, you are expected to play 11v11 and nothing else. Well, actually, some players of that age, they're not ready for that. So they should be able to play smaller formats for longer. So in answer to the question from the coach in Canada, ball mastery on your own is fine, but it has to be tested and tried, against the opposition, the kind of opposition that will come through games.
Yeah, and maybe it's good to think for those who have not these skills, the first opponent is the ball. Yeah. The ball is already an opposition. So they first have to learn to deal with the ball and to develop these skills. And this is what they can do at home, alone. Having that ball mastery training and then trying to do it like with lower opposition. If you, instead of playing 2v2 or 3v3, you can play 2v1. You help them a little bit. And then it's just, like you said, building, it's a long-term process. But the more they will do it, the better they will become. Yeah. And that's also where, as a coach, you need to be patient and give them the support and the encouragement to keep trying and to value the effort that they make. And hope is a good thing for them, that ball. Yeah.
Kris, we talk about the young child putting the ball under a spell so that it's under control. Yeah. So when you're dribbling, is it under your spell? And if it goes astray, so the spell wasn't strong enough or the spell broke. Let's work on that. Yeah. So we have to enter the child's world in order to and your thing about sharks and canaries, that's entering the world of the child.
Yeah. Good.
Guys, I mean, for me, I'm gonna wrap it up really, but one of the key things that you both mentioned repeatedly is that this is not, and you just said it now, Pete, this is not a short-term fix. Getting children to play the game in this way and to understand the game and give them the skill, that takes time. It's a long-term development plan, really. But also, I think as a coach, if you are new to this approach, it also takes time for you to understand how this works, right? and what things work for you and for your players, and we just have to all be patient, and you know, as long as we feel that we're on the right path, just experiment with that path, really. Guys, I'm gonna thank you from the bottom of my heart again. Lots of great questions. Apologies if we didn't get to all of them. Please, for everybody watching, visit the iCoachKids YouTube channel. We've got over 120 videos full of great content and information for coaches working with children. You could even go and do one of our free e-learning courses. Go on the website, read some of the blogs, including blogs by Pete and Kris. Follow us on social media, and really, if you enjoy this, next Wednesday, and we talked about differentiation and individualized development, we've got the masters of this. Okay, next week we're going to have Ken Black from the Inclusion Club and Fiona Murray from Special Olympics. If you don't know Ken Black is the creator of the inclusion framework, and a lot of you may have worked with the STEP model, but that was Ken's idea. Okay, so if you really want to learn more about how to differentiate in your sessions, regardless of ability or disability, just how do we create great environments where every child is engaged and learning. See you all next week at 2 p.m. Other than that, please join me again to thank Pete and Kris, and have a good evening. Stay safe, stay connected. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Kris, great work. Thanks, Sergio.
Yeah, Peter.